The J. Michael Show.
Welcome to another episode of The J. Michael Show. We have a very special guest for you, and my sidekick Odelia is with us. But let's say hi to Vanessa Angel.
Hi, I'm so happy to see you, J. Michael.
Hey. And Odelia, how are you doing?
Hi, yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. Really good.
Nice to meet you, Odelia. It's a beautiful name, by the way, Odelia.
Thank
Gorgeous.
you. Thank you very much, yes.
You have similar accents.
Yeah, I don't have a very thick South African accent, so
No.
no.
And I don't really have a British accent anymore, so yes.
Well, you've been in America for how many years now?
So many years, J. Michael. Since 1983. So
Yeah.
30, no, sorry, oh my gosh, 43 years? I'm getting to that age where I'm losing track of time and decades and like it all, I don't know, it's weird. But yes, I've been 43 years.
I get it. I don't throw anything at me that requires math. I'll never get it. So you came to America in the early 80s.
In the early 80s, yeah.
What was your first movie here?
First movie was Spies Like Us, which strangely enough, I had moved to New York. I was invited by Eileen Ford, who had Ford Model Agency, and I was modeling in Europe.
Yeah.
And I intended to go to New York just for the summer, and I ended up, doing really well in my modeling career, and I loved New York City, and it was just so exciting that I ended up staying. And in 1984, the end of 1984, I get a call from my British model agency, and they said that this director, John Landis, wanted to see me for this movie he was doing. And it actually happened to be, he was in London at the time, and I was going back to London for Christmas. It was literally like Christmas holiday time. Mm-hmm. So I met him, and I really didn't think anything of it, although I'd done a lot of school plays, and I loved the drama club. It was not something I thought of doing seriously, and I had been very much, wrapped up in my modeling career and making that happen. Mm-hmm. But then I found out after that meeting, about a month later, they called and said, "Oh, he wants to meet you again," and he happened to be in Washington this time. So I went from New York to Washington, met him. And then about a week later, I found out he wanted me for the role. And and it was a huge movie, Spies Like Us, with Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, and it was shooting in Pinewood Studios in England, and all the exteriors that were Russia were Norway. So I got this massively huge experience, like right out the gate. Yeah. So I was just hooked after that. Like I didn't really intend to become an actress, but it just kind of literally landed in my lap. And I couldn't consider myself really an actress at that point, but I learned so much from that first experience. Even though the role didn't really require much acting ability, it was definitely just the whole experience was so exciting that I was just hooked.
Well, you've had all this time now. You were a successful model, and then you went into doing movies and TV. Which of the two did you prefer? Did you think you had more fun at?
Well, I think acting was obviously a lot more challenging because it required a lot more of me. Like with the modeling, obviously I was very young when I started, and you don't really know yourself at 15, 16, 17 years old. But it was fun. It was exciting. I loved an aspect of it was sort of performative, but you're just basically a clothes hanger. You have to know how to work work angles and be good in front of the camera, but it's it's a still process, whereas obviously acting is you being a full human being.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a lot more exciting for me, and I think that there was a lot of like I had a lot of emotional input that I just didn't know where to put in a way. Like I was quite a sort of, I don't know how to say this. I was kind of a deep person. I'm neurodivergent, so I was very, I looked at things differently, and I had a treasure trove of an emotional life. Mm-hmm. So, but it took a long time to kind of be able to use all that stuff in my work as an actress, and that took going to class and really studying very, very hard for years, and I actually recognized the upside and the downside of getting Spies Like Us right out the gate was that it was a huge movie.
Yeah.
So I got to be signed by a big agency, and they want to send you out right away to, and I was, my first director I ever met with was John Carpenter for Big Trouble in Little China. And then I met with, that kind of level directors, and and these were big roles where there was required, a lot of skill was required, and I really didn't have the skill, so I just decided that I had to just not do that, even though it was incredible to get those opportunities. But if you get them before you're ready, it can be the kiss of death. Mm-hmm. So because then you kind of blow that relationship with the casting office that brought you in, or it's just not good. But the big agencies don't, they don't really recognize when you're 18, 19 years old, if you were just sort of thrown into the deep end, that you don't really know how to navigate it all. So it took me, I would say, 3 or 4 years in New York seriously studying to really feel like I had a handle on even going into an audition.
Right.
So,
did you have anyone that sort of took you under their wing and tried to teach you?
Yeah, my experience on Spies Like Us was wonderful. I mean, Dan Aykroyd was very warm, and Donna Dixon, who was his wife, she gave me some really nice little sort of, some advice early on. And then John Landis, who's the director, he had actually set up a meeting for me with a very big time casting director in New York called Bonnie Timmerman, and she, I wouldn't say took me under her wing, but she definitely, she introduced me to a manager, which, you really need. And so I signed up with this manager who was a very big manager at the time. And he had Eric Roberts and Viggo Mortensen, and, who in the 80s were huge. I mean, Viggo Mortensen's. So she did that. And then she also set me up with an acting coach called Sandra Lee. And so she really did guide me in the beginning, and was, helped me kind of like see it, see how the business works. And the managers and the agents kind of give their input. But you really, the downside of starting so young is that you really don't know yourself yet. And so you're trying so hard to sort of please everybody, but also be true to yourself. And it's not easy.
Yeah. I get that.
Early on.
Odelia might have a question here too, but so how are you feeling now about acting? I mean, is it something you get up in the morning and say, I want to go do this?
Yeah, I still love it. It's like inherently in me. Like, I love performing. It's a wonderful outlet, but I view it differently now. Like, I think that I was always concerned about, getting traction and doing the right project so you could get the next thing. And, it sort of becomes like very strategic, and you almost get caught up in the business side of it too much. Whereas now I'm just honestly thrilled to get on a set, work with people. Honestly, the last few years, I tend to work with people I know or worked with before. And so it's almost like going to see a bunch of friends again.
Right.
And so the experience of doing the project is just much more important to me than what it's going to do for me, or, it's different at this stage and this age. But the frustrating thing is that I feel like I have more to offer than ever. Mm-hmm. And this is it's so ironic that when you're like starting out and you're green, at least in my case, you're with the top agency, and they're said, and they have access to the biggest movies that are going on when you're not ready. And then now, like, I really feel like I bring a lot to the table, but I'm not getting opportunities for those bigger projects with the bigger directors. So, and I'm not like belittling. I love working with who I work with. I respect every filmmaker and every crew member. We're all trying to put together, a story, something that will resonate with people. So it doesn't matter if it's a, $200,000 budget or $100 million budget. We're all sort of trying to do the same thing. It's just at a different scale. But I'm actually very comfortable with this now, because like I said, I tend to just go work with people I've worked with before, and I've gotten a chance now. I'm older to sort of do more interesting roles. Where it's not about being cute and pretty and this, that. It's like more meaty roles, and the older women that are wise and hopefully, and I've had a lot of life experience, so I can actually bring my own life experience into these roles now.
Good, good. Well, let's see. All of Hollywood is kind of feast and famine these days since the pandemic, right? I mean, isn't all the actors and actresses in Hollywood kind of stressing a little right now, trying to find jobs?
Oh, Jay, Michael, it's changed so much. I mean, particularly, I mean, things were actually good in like right after when things sort of started to, with the COVID restrictions, when those sort of started to be released a little bit, like, the end of 21, 22. I actually did like 7 movies in 22.
Hmm.
So there was sort of like a surge of movies right after, I mean, there were projects going on, but it was all this sort of testing every day and masks between which is very hard to do a movie where you have to be 6 feet apart from people.
Right.
And then in 23, and it looked like it was sort of like getting back on track. And then the strike hit in 23, and then that honestly changed everything. And it's not that the intentions were good for performers, but unfortunately, with just streaming and the way everything was changing so quickly, it sort of like left Screen Actors Guild anyway, just kind of not in a good place, And so actors and it used to be able to make a really good living at this, you used to get paid, obviously the A-list big time, big studio movie, that's a whole other thing. But like even in my world, the sort of middle projects used to make, a decent amount of money. And now, I mean, not that I should talk about money, but it's very difficult because there's like, no, there's not a fair pay anymore.
Right.
And, and just when I feel like I bring more to it than ever, it's like you're sort of asked to do favors a lot, or you're just, oh, this is the budget, that's all we have, and and then you're sort of stuck between wanting to be creative, wanting to be a part of it, wanting to bring your talent to the project, but then feeling like you're being really undervalued. And I get it from that side too. Producers, they're trying to make a movie and they've got a certain budget, and it's really hard. You have to figure out like where to put your budget, but it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting jaded, but I find it like, it's difficult because I want to work, but then I also don't, I don't want to feel like I'm just being used and being, so it's tricky.
Well, it's kind of like the record industry. Used to, an artist would make money off all the records that they sold.
Yes, now they have to do tours to make any money.
Yeah, they have to do concerts and they have to sell merchandise. It's the T-shirts,
Yes.
the lunch boxes. That's what's making the money. The music, they're practically giving it away.
I
And
know, right? I mean, the systems have changed, and unfortunately, doesn't seem to be in the artist's favor anymore.
yeah,
And I mean, it's constantly shifting, so who knows where we'll end up? But it's definitely it's a very frustrating part of the industry. The creative artist, and then the business side of it. Which I get, but it's not easy to navigate.
Odelia, do you know or happen to know if it's the same way in England?
Oh, I have no idea.
I know there's a lot of production in England. There's a
Yeah.
lot. I mean, that's another thing with LA. I mean, we've just lost so much. I live in LA, so we've lost a lot of production. Actually, I get so sad. Like I live close to Universal Studios, and sometimes if I go towards Burbank, I drive by Universal, which is where I shot the TV show Weird Science. I spent 4 years there, and then Warner Brothers is further down the road, and they just seem empty. Like there's no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not on the lot, but even just from the street, you can tell that there's just no activity. When I was doing Weird Science in the mid '90s, that lot was just vibing. It was just so fun. There was so many. I remember shooting on the lot, and they were shooting Jurassic Park, and on a stage, and I'd go, we'd go sneak in there. They were shooting Apollo. Is it Apollo 13 or? Yeah, and you could there was literally like all these incredible things going on in this like small vicinity, and it felt exciting. And now I walk I drive by these lots and I just feel, I mean, I'm sure there are still some things going on, but like it just feels different and it's kind of makes me sad, you know?
Yeah. Did out there, when you had all the fires, did that affect any of the studios? I'm sure it affected a lot of actors, but also producers, directors who live
Well,
out there. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people live out in the Palisades, so a majority of the people who live there lost their homes. I think some were saved, but then you're living in a neighborhood where everything else is just decimated. So yeah, it definitely affected people in the industry. And the other fire was Altadena, which is more towards Pasadena. But I mean, LA is a sprawling city.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different sections, but there definitely feels like there's a kind of, I don't know, it's just changed a lot. But then I've also been here so many years that like, of course of course it's going to change. Each decade. Oh, each decade is going to have a different feeling. But I definitely find this decade, being the most challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine. Odelia, do you have a question?
Yeah, so you've had this vast career over all these years. When you look back, what still surprises you about your own journey?
Oh, that's a great question. I think recently it's that I just see it differently now. Like I think when I started out when I was younger, um, obviously it's wonderful to be able to do what you love to do and to be able to make a living at it. And I will always be grateful for that. But I think now I kind of see it through the lens of more of a business, and I kind of see times where I was manipulated, taken advantage of, frankly abused at times. So my whole overall kind of feeling about it is different. And I think that I was very much a people pleaser when I was younger, which I think is, pretty much across the board because you want to be included, you want to make your career happen. So, I just kind of realized that I was too nice in a way, and now I'm older, it's nice to be kind and considerate, but I think if you're just nice to be nice, to accommodate everybody and to be agreeable, and I guess that's what it is. I was so agreeable that I ended up like sometimes hurting myself. Whereas, and it's not about being difficult, and you obviously hear, oh, as my squirrels come to the door, my squirrel. I live around a lot of squirrels, and my little guys.
Oh, we're going to talk about the squirrels. Definitely. Because she has a squirrel that lives outside.
Three squirrels.
Three
and
squirrels.
about
Okay.
Three tree squirrels.
This
But
squirrel
here is.
will come literally like knock on the door because it wants a treat.
He's doing that right this second.
Oh, wow.
Where's my nuts, lady? Sorry.
That's amazing. I love your squirrel videos that you post on Instagram. And you really need to follow Vanessa so you can get her stories on Instagram.
If you like squirrels and bunnies, you're going to like my
She is the
Instagram.
squirrel grandma right there. Definitely.
Oh, I feel so bad. He's like looking through the window. Sorry, this is my ADHD. Like I get like super distracted.
Well, do you need to go hand him a?
You mind?
I don't mind.
I mean, it's just I'll be right back. Literally.
Go ahead. She's gonna go feed her squirrel or one of them. It's searching the room for her. The camera is.
I know I'm crazy. I literally they're like their highlight of my day.
I wish we could have brought the squirrel in. Let him climb on the desk in front of you.
I know he doesn't do that yet.
You gotta teach them where they'll get up on your shoulder.
I know. That's
that would happen.
slow. I can kind of like tickle their belly and like but like they're still a little, they're wild animals, and I mean they're very familiar with me, and they'll happily take a nut, and I can get very close to them, but like they don't like. I think you have to sort of do that when they're very little, get them used to kind of crawling around up on you. Otherwise, they get a little scared. But anyway,
it's not one squirrel. There's three of them. They all three
There's
come.
3 tree squirrels, and there's about 40 ground squirrels, and there's 3 rabbits.
Okay, but there's only 2 or 3 that come to the door, or do they all come to the door?
They pretty much all come to the door, but there's one particular, I call it Lucy and Linus. Lucy is my love. Like, I love Lucy. She's the girl. She's the girl, and she's so sweet. She's the sweetest. But they're all sweet. But yeah, sorry. That's pretty much that sums me up right there. Like,
Well, if animals love you, then you've got a good vibe. You've got everything's going.
they say that. They say that, right? Well, I mean, I just am very attuned. I'm more in tune with animals than with people, actually. So I've always been like that. As a kid, I absolutely just loved nature and animals, and I'm the same way. I think I kind of got distracted, my New York years, and then initially in LA when I was trying to make my career happen. I think I kind of was so focused on that like I kind of lost. I mean, I've always loved animals, and my daughter loves animals, so we'd go to the zoo. We do like a lot of things, but this is different. Like at this point, it's literally like almost the biggest part of my life right now.
Oh, goodness. Okay, Odelia, I'm going to let you ask her some more questions and back up for a minute.
Okay. I had one I wanted to ask you. I'm just trying to remember now. So of all the roles that you've accepted over the years, was there one that you almost turned down that had you turned it down, it would have been a big mistake?
Yeah, well, there was actually a situation in the late 90s. I had just finished Weird Science, and I was offered the role of Prue in the TV show Charmed. Oh. And yeah, and it was crazy because at that, I literally just left a sort of special effects type of show, and I've been doing that for 4 solid years. So I was like, I just wanted to do something different, but I was offered the show, and and the show became obviously super successful, and Shannon Doherty ended up taking the role that I got offered. And I do sometimes think about that. Like, I do think, at the time it felt like the right decision, but I think it probably, and I wanted to do more movies because I'd done Kingpin, and I was finally sort of free to be able to do movies. And so I didn't do that. And I kind of feel like, maybe that was a mistake, but I didn't do it. So, and it is what it, so you have to kind of make peace with it. But there was several movies I got like really, really close to. And then even with Kingpin, like I almost couldn't do Kingpin because I was shooting Weird Science, and we were, on a sort of 9-month-a-year schedule, and Kingpin came along, and they happened to be shooting that in my hiatus of Weird Science. So the timing of that worked out. Like that could have easily not worked out. Like if they had been shooting any other time of the year. There was actually like a 2-week crossover where I was doing the TV show and the movie, which is really hard. And then we were shooting parts of the movie. So a lot of this is like just timing, just especially when you zoom out and you look at your career as a whole, you realize, oh, wow, yeah, it just sort of takes on like a life of its own in a way.
Right.
Yeah. I think I'll always look back and like, oh, why didn't I do that? And why didn't I do this? But you have to just, at this point, you have to make peace and just accept that you made the decisions that felt right at the time, and, that you got to live with it.
Yeah. I heard someone say to me once that in the moment, with all the information that you had, you made the right decision. That's in that moment, and hindsight is always going to change that opinion.
And also, earlier that time in my career, I had so many people that were like in my ear, my agent, my manager, then you got a lawyer, you got a publicist, my husband. It was like, not that he steered me wrong, but there was just a lot of voices. And so you almost like lose like what you want because you're listening to this, and everyone has a slightly different opinion, or, and they're trying to guide you in the right direction. But I think that's, in retrospect, I think that I didn't listen to my own intuition sometimes. I let myself be too swayed by what other people thought. So that's been a big life lesson, actually, is to, be true to yourself.
Yeah. And you're a Scorpio, so you have really strong intuition. So it's like this. No, my mother's a Scorpio, actually. But I'm fascinated with astrology. So I saw your birthday and I was like...
I'm a Scorpio rising as well, so
Oh, wow.
yeah, I'm double Scorpio. It's
Very,
intense. Yeah, that's true
yeah,
though. Very
yeah.
true. Yeah.
And so when you took the role for Kingpin, did you have any idea at that point that this was going to be a cult favorite?
No, I mean there were high expectations for it because the Farrelly Brothers' first movie had been Dumb and Dumber, and that had done incredibly well. So there was a lot of anticipation for Kingpin, but it was again like it was weird the way it all kind of came together because Woody Harrelson, right after we shot Kingpin, started to shoot People versus Larry Flint, and that was like a very highbrow kind of movie and a very interesting character for him. Not that Kingpin wasn't, but and that they were kind of like almost like competing. So he put sort of more of his. I'm not blaming this on Woody, but at the time, but like he put more of his sort of eggs in that basket. So I remember when Kingpin actually was released in theaters, it didn't do that well the opening weekend. Like they were expecting it to be number one and make, like just tens of millions of dollars. And it didn't. It kind of fell flat. And it really wasn't until like 6 months later, a year later, that people kind of found it. So like the initial impact wasn't as great as it became. Like then it sort of became a cult classic and people, discovered it sort of after the fact, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it kind of became this cult classic, whereas at the actual time, like before it came out, it definitely did do something for my, profile, for my profile level, but it didn't sort of catapult. I didn't become, this megastar actor or anything like that, which is probably good because I don't think I could have handled it. Like Cameron Diaz, so, did the Farrelly Brothers movie after Kingpin, and she, obviously became Cameron Diaz. I mean, she was successful before that, but it didn't do that for me. And I think that like everybody was expecting that to happen. So it was kind of strange, But now, obviously, 30 years. This is literally the 30-year anniversary this summer, so I can't believe it's been 30 years. But so it became this bigger thing, like after it was actually happening in real time, if that makes sense.
Has there ever been a role that you did that you felt like maybe it hurt your career or you wish you hadn't done it?
Oh gosh, yes.
All right.
I did a couple of stinkers when I first started. I mean, not stinkers, but it's like when you're starting out, each set you're going to learn something different. And I did this. I don't even really want to make a story of it, but like I did this movie called Killer Instinct at the time, and then they changed it to The Homicidal Impulse, and it was like a sort of like sexual thriller, and like I was so green really that I really didn't understand like what that was. I just was like, oh, he's the lead in a movie, and then it was like, although strangely enough, the DP on that was this wonderful, incredible talent called Janusz Kaminski. And he became Spielberg's DP after this movie. Like it was literally like right before Schindler's List. And this DP became Spielberg's like DP on everything. So it was beautifully, so I was doing this like B movie for what was that company called? Roger Corman.
Oh.
But it was like shot by Janusz Kaminski, so it was like beautifully shot. But it was so those are the kind of things where you don't know at the time, like okay, that's not probably a good thing to do.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of there was one that had dinosaurs, and I think
oh gosh, Sabretooth.
Like that one, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sabretooth. I mean, again, we shot that in Big Bear. I actually had a blast doing it, but and I remember my daughter was like 6 weeks old at the time, and so I was like trying to breastfeed and like do the movie, and it was like insane. But so honestly, sometimes you need to do the work because you need the money.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like you don't always have the choice to like say no.
So, yeah, Is there anything that you wish would do a part two, a sequel to it that you've done?
Kingpin. They actually
Yes.
announced a sequel in 21. In 21.
Ah,
And or is it 22? I don't know, like a few years ago. And so I was so excited about that. And it was going to happen like the following year. It was all, the script was written, it was bought, had conversations with Peter Farrelly, and it never happened. So
no.
know why. I don't know. I still to this day don't know exactly what happened, but
Oh, goodness. Would you go back and do Stargate again and play, what
yeah.
was it, Freya? Yeah. If they ask you.
Freya. Well, I don't know. Did Tok'ra like age? I don't know. Aren't they doing a new I think they're doing a new version of it, right?
I've heard that they're gonna actually reboot it all over again. So we'll see what happens there. Did you do an episode of Murder, She Wrote?
I did do that. That was actually, that shot at Universal.
What was Angela Lansbury like?
Oh, she was great. I mean, she's the legend. She and her son actually was directing this particular episode. She's amazing. I mean, she's talk about a veteran. Yeah, I mean, and who else did I work in that? I worked with couple of, I forget now, but like a couple of big time actors. They used to get like really interesting guest stars for that show. So that was.
You were doing Baywatch too at some point.
Yeah, Baywatch was even before that. Baywatch was like my first gig in LA, I think.
And The Equalizer, one of your first.
That was in New York. Yeah, that was a little job I did in New York, but yeah, Baywatch was like the first job in LA, and that was, and again, it's like you sort of get what you get, and then you get more work based on the work you got. So it's kind of weird the way it works. It's very easy to fall into kind of not a trap, but you get like, you do something and then you get known for that. And so then you get something similar offered to you. And so before you know it, you sort of ended up in a sort of niche that you didn't necessarily end up wanting to be in. But I'm honestly, J. Michael, I am grateful for all of it now. I think that's the benefit of time and some wisdom, is that I just look at it now as a sort of story, and with a lot of gratitude, and I learned a lot about myself, about so much through these years because of it.
Do you have any stories from the set of Californication? Was that?
Oh yeah, well I knew David Duchovny actually. David was one of the first people I met in the industry actually. I met him back in 1986, and so we were friends, and we had a mutual friend that was his best friend. So we would hang out a lot together. The squirrel is still at it. I swear, he's not going away until he gets more nuts. Sorry. So I knew David, and we'd kept in touch over the years, but we never worked together. And then when he started doing Californication, I think I might have asked him. I think I said, can I please have me on the show? And so he brought me on for that wacky role, Brentwood housewife role, which is quite something. But great, it was great. I mean, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. And the whole cast of that was brilliant. And, it was a prestigious show at the time and kind of cutting edge. So it's always great to be a part of those kind of things.
You've done several Christmas movies. Do you like doing holiday movies?
I do actually. Like I do. Like I just did one a few months ago with Eric Roberts called Perfect Christmas Kiss, which is coming out obviously Christmas time. And then I did one that I was actually really proud of called Merry Xmas. And I did that in 22 with the company in Rhode Island I worked with before a few times. And it was probably actually the closest that I've ever played to myself. and the story really kind of revolved around me, and I'm, a middle-aged woman with a family, and her husband's just sort of left her, and she's like dealing with real life issues, and then she runs into her high school sweetheart, and they kind of, have a little, they're sort of faced with that. And even though it's a Christmas movie, like, I don't think I've ever done something so close to just using my own emotions in like not in a charactery way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I do like, and feel good movies, they're fun to shoot. They feel good,
Right. I'm going to embarrass my wife here for a second, but starting in July, she will start watching Christmas movies, and she'll watch Christmas movies all the way through until Christmas.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea, Edith.
I think, doesn't Hallmark have like Christmas in July or something? Like all
Yeah.
of July, Hallmark shows Christmas movies. Everybody loves a Christmas movie because they're usually about, they have a feel good ending, especially. Like, so it's, love and family and coming together. So those
And
are,
who doesn't love that? Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. She's probably seen every movie,
Oh.
every Christmas movie you're in at least twice.
I actually just did a voiceover and a narration for another Christmas movie called Christmas Miracle. I think it was Christmas. So I feel like I'm on the Christmas movie bandwagon right now.
Speaking of voiceovers, have you ever done like a cartoon, a voiceover?
No, but strangely enough, I actually just got a voiceover agent, like literally 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
And he sent me out, not sent me out because you literally just do it into it's so not easy, but it's much easier to be on camera.
Yeah, you
And
walk
I'm
into
like,
a closet and do it. Yeah.
yeah, literally, I go into my closet or the bathroom, like one of those. Sometimes, depending on what the noise factor is outside. But yeah, and I actually love acting with my voice. But these weren't animated voices for like anime shows. These are like commercial, for like United Air. One was United Airlines,
Right.
like that kind of things, like more of a commercial voiceover thing. But I would love to like do animation because then you can really be expressive and create a character with your voice. And I mean, I do a lot of Comic Cons, and that's where it's at right now. People want to come and meet the voiceover actors. They don't, there's not as much attention on camera talent anymore, really. At least in the Comic Cons I do, the smaller Comic Cons.
Yeah.
The big ones when you have, big on camera talent come, they're popular, but it's much more of an anime market right now.
Right. Do you think that AI is going to change everything?
I think it has. I mean, I think that's what the unions are fighting for, to sort of to protect our. But no, it's happening. It's happening. It's scary. I think that's the thing. None of us really know exactly what this is going to do. I think I think there'll always be a demand for real, true human acting because that's the whole point of what we're doing. We're humanity trying to connect stories and feelings and be what it is to be a human being. Like, it doesn't make sense if it's AI to me, I mean, it's weird. I mean, I can understand maybe some visual background stuff, but certainly not actors. You can't like replace actors. For me, it's like, it makes no sense.
Have you ever done theater where you're on stage with an audience?
I have. In New York, I did a couple of plays, but I was very young and new at that point, so I was like kind of terrified. I didn't even particularly like doing like multi-camera sitcoms because that's almost like doing a play that's just filmed. The Friends type multi-camera shows. Mm-hmm. Those were really hard to do. Wow. Really hard to do. For me, because it's sort of like a cross between doing on-camera television, but also you got a live audience there, and they're stopping and starting, and like they change your lines, like that they have like a huddle of writers, and they would, as you're performing, it would like the next take would be like, oh no, say this and this and this, and at that stage I was kind of like prepped, like with what I had to do, so I wasn't as good at sort of being on my toes. Now I could do it easily, but back then, it was sort of like, so yeah, I'm not. I prefer. I'm not. I don't think theater was not my favorite. Let's put it that way. Although I appreciate it, and really, when you're studying in class, you're studying theater. Like I was in an actor studio. I mean, we did nothing but theater scenes, scenes from plays when we were studying. So,
Does it bother you to have a whole lot of dialogue?
great question. Now it does.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't bother me, but it takes me so much prep time. Like because obviously I'm older now. My brain's good, but like I do have a hard time. Once I get it, I'm great.
Mm-hmm.
But I will, if I have a character with a lot of dialogue, I mean, we're talking 2 weeks prep of like learning the dialogue and, just so that once I get on set, I'm not like grabbing for lines and like, I like to know I don't like go to like learn the lines too quickly. Like I usually read the script several times just to sort of get a sense of it before I start to kind of like put my take on the character. But yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard to memorize. That's probably the hardest part of acting now for me.
Have you ever walked on stage and the director handed you a sheet of paper and said, "We've changed everything. You got to do this now"?
No, but you know what used that where that used to happen a lot was with auditions. Like when auditions were in person, this is back in the 90s and earlier 2000s. Sometimes you would like literally get an audition and it would be like 12 pages of, for NCIS or something. I mean, not that, but be very like, a procedural show where there's a lot of tricky dialogue and you would literally be up all night learning it. And then you'd go in and they'd be like, "Oh, we did a we revised the script. Like you can go take 10 minutes and look it up." And it was like completely, utterly different. Right. And I'm like, oh, those situations really threw me. Now they wouldn't. Now I'm talking about like when I was still like getting my footing and feeling, pressure and feeling like I wanted to be great and I wanted to, and that was hard when they would come. You'd walk in and you'd be like so ready to go, and then they're like almost every line was different, and you're like freaking out. At least I was.
Have you ever wanted to do a soap opera? That changes, and there's usually a lot of dialogue.
Yes, I did. I did do. Actually, I was on One Life to Live for like a week in late '80s when I lived in New York, and that was just a guest thing. But yes, I mean, they get like 40, 50, 60 pages a day to learn. Like that is so hard. I mean, once you have your character down, you've got your character down, but it's not easy to learn.
Well, Delia, you look like you have a question. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. So you've worked across all these different genres, as we're talking about. Is there anything that you feel that you still want to try that you haven't tried yet?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I really have done. I have actually wanted to mention this one movie I have coming out, which is a comedy noir, and it's called Sticky. Yeah. And I shot that a couple of years ago, but it's coming out. The trailer's dropping in a couple of weeks. And I love that genre. It's something like that sort of Tarantino kind of vibe where it's funny, but like it's really a dark comedy and there's a lot of sort of like crazy situations going on, but there's a sort of comedic through line through it. That's a genre I love. And then the sort of the big, I've done, like you said, I've really sort of done everything, the big broad comedies and then just the sort of regular comedies. And now that I'm older, I tend to get offered like thrillers, because those movies are on Lifetime and they sort of cater to more towards middle-aged, older women. And so, and I've also gotten a chance to play very kind of much more intense, crazy roles on those type of projects. So that's been nice where you sort of get to, you're not the ingenue, you're not the sort of leading lady, you're the sort of older, crazy woman that lives in the woods that's like, a witch or something. And those are kind of fun. Like I didn't really get to. I mean, I played like darker characters before, but I've done them more, I guess, lately in the last sort of 10 years. So that's been fun. But yeah, I don't really have a favorite genre, but I do really feel like I can kind of fit into anything, which is nice.
Uh-huh. Did you like doing science fiction?
So, well, yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite to shoot because, again, like with Stargate, great show, brilliant writing, great cast, great producers, but the dialogue was so hard.
Yeah,
The dialogue of Tok'ra, that again was like I had to learn that rote. Like I had to, and you got to remember with TV, that they're trying to get their day. 6 pages, 7, 8 pages, whatever. That you're always running against a clock. So you don't have the luxury to, especially if you're coming in as a guest or even recurring. Like they might give a break to the lead, but if you're not on your game, and I did find that a little bit challenging on Stargate because it was literally for me like learning another language.
right.
I knew that I didn't have, you don't want to be doing your fourth and fifth take, when you're the guest star. So that was challenging. Sci-fi language can be challenging in terms of memorization.
Were you ever offered a job on Star Trek?
I was never, no, I don't think I ever went out on a Star Trek episode, actually. I never had the
Yeah,
opportunity. It was weird. Yeah.
yeah. Stargate's still good though. Well,
Yeah. So good.
yeah,
So,
that's what a lot of people will remember you from is weird science, which is kind of sci-fi, and
yeah, it's kind of
Stargate.
sci-fi. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I do Comic Cons, and that's really the sort of, where I started doing Comic Cons was based on Stargate. And then Weird Science, as you said, was kind of sci-fi-ish,
Yeah.
fantasy sci-fi. So, those kind of got me into the Comic Con arena as well, which is nice.
So you do like 5 or 6 Comic Cons a year, right?
Yeah, last year I did. I missed a couple because of the air travel was so messed up towards the end of the year. But this year I'm doing fewer actually. I think it's especially right now with airfares and it's like harder for it's not the best economy I don't think for
Mm.
some of these promoters. So I feel like there's less going on for me anyway this year. I mean, I'm sure that the big ones are still going on, but the sort of smaller ones seem to be not happening as much this year. But I love that I've gotten to go to cities that I wouldn't probably get the chance to go to. Like I've done the big market ones, like in Dallas or the bigger ones.
Yeah.
But smaller markets, I would never normally go to Lawton, Oklahoma, or Amarillo, Texas, where I've got to visit parts of the country that would have never been. So that's another lovely aspect because I love traveling. I love to see different places and meet different people from those places. And, that's another part of the experience of, that I'm so grateful for is that I've traveled to 42 different countries, a lot of states within the United States, as I said, that I probably wouldn't naturally go to. Um, so I feel like it's been just a huge learning experience on so many levels.
Hmm. I was so sad to hear that they canceled the one in Dallas because that's where
I
you and I
know,
would get to hang out. And
I know. I mean, he might be doing it later in the year. I actually know the promoter,
okay.
and actually it's actually the same promoter as when I first met you.
Hmm.
That you remember in that sort of in that like it was almost like in a mall or something.
Yeah, it was
Right? Remember
near a
that one?
mall. Yeah, it was a little
Yeah.
mall. That was the smallest
It was the
con I
smallest
think
one I
I've
remember.
ever
But you
been
know what?
to.
It was hopping that weekend. I remember that it
Uh,
was a very successful weekend actually. So
uh-huh.
that's the thing. Like sometimes you can, as an actor of my level, sometimes you can end up doing better at a small venue like that than if you're at one where there's like I was in Albuquerque in January and I think there was like 120 guests or something, in
Right.
some ones. So then you're kind of just like, in the sauce and like, but
Yeah.
when it's smaller venue, and you get more of a chance to really kind of talk to people and get more, be more, have the chance to be more engaged.
Yeah. Then there was that one, the larger one that was down around Austin. Austin.
Yes, Austin. Yes,
My wife got to meet Eric Estrada. Oh,
yes, yes. Well, Eric and I have had the same Comic Con agent, so we would often be. I've done a lot of Comic Cons with Eric, so he's lovely. Yeah, yeah, that's right. That was a bigger one, where you're in a kind of like arena or more a
oh,
bigger.
something I really wish you had done was The Walking Dead. They have their own conventions.
Oh, I know. Well, I like Xena too, Well, that's another thing that I forgot to mention earlier about when I mentioned Charmed. I was offered the role of Xena and then I couldn't do it. I mean, I've told that story now a million times, so I don't need to repeat it. But that, I could have been doing Comic Cons for the rest of my life,
Right.
being, but as I've said now 1,000 times on podcasts, I really believe that Lucy Lawless was supposed to play that role, and I needed to get out of the way. And the way it all came out, fell, into place was just, I have to look at it as it was meant to be for Lucy.
Yeah. Well, Xena, that particular role, she does a lot of jumping and flipping and landing.
Well, yeah.
And would you like a role like that that's very physical?
Well, I mean, oh no, Jay Mike, this is what went down. Like I had actually auditioned for Hercules, and Rob Tapert was the showrunner for Hercules, and it was right around the same time as Weird Science, and Hercules was shooting in New Zealand, and I had only been in LA for a short time, so I wanted to kind of stay in LA, and Weird Science shot at Universal Studios, which was literally like 10 minutes from where I live, and so I chose to do Weird Science. But Rob Tapert, the showrunner of Hercules liked, he just liked me as an actress. And he was also on the Universal lot. So I remember running into him and he was writing this role of Xena, who initially it was on Hercules. She was introduced in Hercules and it was a 3-part episode. And I met with them and they saw, it was happening. I had 6 weeks of training. Like I had to go out to Simi Valley and do horse riding training because I wasn't that proficient on a horse. I mean, it was intense. And then I had a martial arts trainer. I had to learn how to broadsword fight, like jump up and down a horse, like all skills that I didn't know how to do. Yeah. So that's partly actually why I ended up getting sick because I was doing this. I was shooting Weird Science, doing all this training in my spare time. And then it was, again, right around Christmas time. And by the time I got to England, I picked up a terrible flu. And I couldn't, I was wiped out for 2 weeks and I couldn't get on the flight. The show started shooting beginning of January. And I couldn't get on the flight because I think my body was so worn down. So I agree. I don't think that I was strong enough physically to really play that role as well as it needed. And I think that Lucy was just better suited physically for that part.
Would you take a role like that today that's very physical? Would you like that? I mean, you're very physically fit. You do Pilates.
I'm fit, but no, I don't. I mean, a lot of times, in productions, you have a stunt double. That you have to have a stunt double for some of the more dangerous things because if something happens to you, then they can't shoot.
Right.
So, physically demanding roles are very challenging for me at this point. I could do for a few days, but I don't think I could do 9 months a year of a physically challenging role anymore. Right.
Well, since I've known you, you've had a few accidents. You fell off a mountain once. Tell me about you. How are you doing now?
I'm great. I was so lucky. I had a hiking accident. I broke my hip in 2020 in 2 places, but fortunately, it didn't break on the actual kind of joint part. It was sort of just on the hip bone. Mm-hmm. So I didn't need surgery, and I literally lay on a infrared mat for about 2 months. Wow. And had physical therapy, and I healed in about 3 months, and I've honestly never had a problem since then with my hips anyway. Yeah. So I was very lucky. But lucky.
Then you fell again, didn't you?
Did I?
I don't know. Since I've known you, there's been about 3 times, I think. So and each time it was like you fell off something, and I would joke with you and go, "Quit climbing those mountains." And you said, never.
Yeah. Well, that was a major injury. What else have I done? I'm sure. I mean, I love being physically fit. I still love to hike. I do Pilates. And I just do stuff here at home so it's important to stay, physically fit just because I've always been like that, and I just feel like it just helps with my energy level. It just helps with. It's not even a vanity thing anymore. It's just like I just, I feel better when I'm, in good physical fitness.
Hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit, and Odelia might have a question on this, but tell me a little bit about how are you doing now spiritually? Are you okay inside?
Yes, I mean, I would say that I've definitely been on a dark night of the soul journey for
Uh-huh.
the last few years, really. Um, a lot of things happened in my life, sort of 2018, 2019, and that led me to sort of to do a really deep dive. I mean, I've always been, interested in psychology and therapy and bettering myself and understanding myself better. But when you're so busy and I was raising a daughter and like career and marriage and all of that, you get so caught up in like just survive, it's keeping your life, all of it going.
Right.
And and obviously now my daughter is older and I'm not married anymore, so I've had more time to be able to really sit and reflect and kind of do the really deep work
Uh-huh.
that is required. And so in that regard, I have a better sense of who I am, a better, I have a true spiritual life now. I have an understanding of who I am, what I need, and I've really overcome a lot of things that were big obstacles for me. The people pleasing, I've come to terms with a lot of trauma that I went through when I was younger, and it's been a painful period, but it's been very cathartic and very. I feel honestly, I mean, it sounds sort of cliche, but I feel like a completely, utterly different human being than I was even 3 years ago. I would say the biggest growth for me has been like the last 2 years has been like I don't really even recognize that older version of me. Not that not that she was a bad person, but like when you sort of like get to a point where you realize you've made true changes and you're just a truly new version of yourself. Better version.
You've come a long way just since I've known you. And that's been,
Oh,
what, 5
really?
years now? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Adelia, looks like you have a question. Go for it. Like I say, jump in wherever. You don't have to ask.
I'm following the conversation. It's really interesting. So you talk about the deep work that you've done on yourself spiritually. What practice has been most impactful for you?
Oh, good.
Oh, wow. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I was in therapy, talk therapy on and off for about 20 years. And that was really helpful. But I think when my marriage ended, I was just really faced with myself. And so I almost had to deconstruct from old conditioning and old patterns. And for that, I used, meditation, the sort of go-tos. But I also, I found out that I'm on the spectrum. Like I have ADHD. And so that actually changed everything because I realized that so much of the struggles that I've had were because I was autistic. And that has been just changed everything, really.
Can be so
And
validating, right?
Yeah. And now I just, I didn't sometimes understand if I had emotional dysregulation, I didn't understand that my coping mechanisms or my lack of coping mechanisms were really coming because I have a neurodivergent brain. And so that has been massive. So now I really just try to be just sort of conscious of when I have thoughts and feelings that, if it's a negative flood or whatever's coming into my brain, I just know that it's like too much overthinking basically. And so overstimulation. So I just have to do things that will keep, little things that will like help. Just like going outside and like putting my feet in earth and just, I mean, I'm joking about the squirrels, but like I live in this little sort of bird squirrel sanctuary, and just being in nature like grounds me so much. It like gets me out of my head, and it gets me to a place where I just feel present without the constant chatter and trying to figure everything out. Like I'm just one of those people that was always just like trying to get answers for everything. And that serves a purpose if you're, if you want to find out about something, in great detail, but it doesn't serve your everyday life very well. Yeah. So it's just been a sort of, it's been like just trying to learn what works for me when I'm having my brain is going off in a direction I don't want it to. Then I have tools now that I can use.
You understand yourself better, and also you have more compassion for yourself, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really not to get too in the weeds, but like I think that I had a lot of self-hatred. I had a lot of like, because I didn't like these parts of myself, but I didn't understand. I didn't like accept them. So there's been just a lot of self-acceptance and just not like blaming, being angry at myself, because that's how I'm wired.
Yeah, and you probably compare yourself to, because I'm also late diagnosed ADHD, so I can relate to that. So like you look so you look at other people and you're like, why can't I cope the way that they're coping? Yes. Why am I like this and not like that? And so when you get that diagnosis, it really does give you that compassion for yourself to say, there's nothing wrong with me. I just operate a bit differently.
Yes. I mean, I actually was on with my daughter for Mother's Day, but we celebrated on Saturday. And I found myself in this sort of, not because of her, but in this situation. We were in a very busy, loud, crazy, noisy place. And there was way too much stimulus for me. And I kind of like, I didn't realize at the time, but and then getting out of the parking lot at the Grove became a nightmare, and they wouldn't validate it. It was like just a lot of silly stuff like that. Yeah. And I literally, by the time I got home, I was having like an autistic meltdown.
Wow. Were you?
I can't believe I'm revealing all this stuff, but and now instead of going like, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" Like I can understand. Okay, you're having a meltdown based on too much stimulation. So I'm much gentler with myself now, which is. But it doesn't negate like how uncomfortable those feelings can be when they come up. Like and it doesn't happen very often anymore, but like if I get too much stimulus at one time and I'm in a place where I can't manage it's not good.
Were you clinically diagnosed, or did you figure all this out yourself?
Initially, I started reading up a lot about it, and I started to recognize a lot of traits. Mm-hmm. And then I did one of those like online evaluation things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But like which helps, but it's not like I even need that to get like, I think sometimes people need that to so that they have accommodations. I'm not in this sort of line of work where I need accommodations for, I mean, a lot of it has served me. Like, I think it's, usually makes you even more creative and more, there's a lot of upside to being neurodivergent, but there are times where I can like get too much stimulus but I don't, it's not like I need to like tell here I am telling everybody about it now, but it's just.
But we need more people talking about it though.
Yes. And that's what I realized too. Now I follow a lot of page, on it, social media, and I really truly read up a lot about it. And now I don't have shame about it. Like there's no shame. It's just that my brain works this way. And now I'm understanding it, at this stage of my life. I wish I'd known this 30 years ago, because I could have like managed things so much better.
Yeah. And I have another podcast called the Midlife Awakening podcast, and I talk about all these type of topics, so that like the version of you 30 years ago could find it and be like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yes.
That's what I'm going through. Yeah,
exactly. And I actually have I'm very sort of disillusioned by, I was in, as I said, talk therapy for quite a long time. And my therapist didn't even really, she just was like generalized anxiety. You get like, they don't, to me, it's like when I look back, it was like, it was so clear what was not wrong, but like how my brain was. And they something, especially back then, I mean, I started in the 90s to have, and they just didn't pick up on that. Mm-hmm. And as you know, like women were not, I mean, I've been like this since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was so clear when I think of like behavior that I had as a child, it is like literally like,
It makes sense.
I mean, I would literally, I know I'm getting really probably too detailed here, but I would literally like rock back and forth as a little kid, like all the time.
Yeah.
And I would like jump off of up the table at dinner and like go do and I was gymnast, do cartwheels and back flips. And like, I couldn't like, I was constantly in motion and everyone was, oh, that's Nessie. She's so quirky. And she's so, yeah, I mean, it is quirky behavior. But like I didn't realize that I was just trying to manage my nervous system and I didn't know how to. So but like now if like a kid was like rocking back and forth like that, you'd know that like but like my parents were like, oh, that's just Nessie being weird.
Yeah.
You know?
She's got
I think there's a
pants.
Yeah,
I think
no,
there's
really.
I think there's a very big difference between
Even my sister said when I told her, you know, the diagnosis, she was like, "Oh, well, you were very bouncy when you were little." And I'm like, "Bouncy, yeah." But they did, you know. This was, you know, I was born in 1966. They didn't pick up the stuff in the 70s, really. You know, for girls especially. So
Didn't have names for it. They do now.
no,
Well, you and Odelia are going to be best friends. I can tell.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah.
You two have the exact same things in common. Odelia, do you have another question?
No, I was just going to say, going back to the talk therapy, I think and I say this all the time on my show, is that there's a very big difference. Talk therapy is really good for validating an experience that you've gone through and for someone to hold a space for you if you want to unpack something you've been through, but it's not going to heal you. You've got to do the somatics. You've got to get it out of the body.
Exactly.
And the grounding is so important. So there's just that. And it's really great that people are starting to go to therapy because, I mean, 10, 20 years ago, that was a taboo thing.
Right.
But we need to move it to the next level. Okay, therapy is great, but there's this whole other healing sector that you can tap into and that you can heal and you can be that better version of yourself a lot quicker instead of having to do 20 years of talk therapy.
Exactly. And there's a lot of, you know, online communities too, or, you know, even in-person communities, you know, for people with ADHD or autism or, you know, a combination. And, you know, I mean, it's almost to the point where like, it's hard. It's actually kind of harder for me to relate to someone that's just very neurotypical because I just they just think in a different way. And it's not to say, you know, one's better than the other. I mean, it's easier if I think the society is set up more for neurotypical people. It's more challenging if you're neurodivergent, but it's really nice. You know, I feel like I just relate better to people whose brains work the same as mine. Because we get each other, you know, you understand on a really real level.
Exactly.
So,
Wow.
yeah. Well, that's great that you do that work. I mean, I really like that. Yes, I agree. It needs to be spoken about more. And I think there's way more people that have this than realize it or help for it. So
Exactly.
So much fun. It's like a real conversation, just talking. But Vanessa, what's next for you? Do you have any movies lined up, or you said Stinky's coming out soon, right?
Stinky's coming out soon. The trailer's going to drop in about 2-3 weeks. I'm really excited about that. And then I have another movie called Buster Brooks that's coming out. The trailer's already dropped for that one, and that's a sort of a cute, like fish out of water story where this kid from Arkansas plays mom, like a sort of small farm town kid.
You do the southern accent.
Yeah, I did the southern accent like this from Arkansas. That was super fun. We shot in Utah, and it's actually a cute little story. So that's coming out.
Well, you nailed the accent. You got it just right.
Thank you. I worked hard on that, because that doesn't come easily to me. And a lot of the scenes were out on the farm, and it was sort of like a lot of like stuff going on. So you kind of, those are again the times where it's really good to be super prepared, because you know sometimes you're on a set and you got chickens running around and you got this and that and and so you got to like be present with also dealing with all this activity going on
and watch where you step.
Yes. Well, there was a rooster that was one of the main characters in this movie actually. And then in June I'm doing a small little part in a friend's movie called The Café, which is sort of it sort of takes place in this cafe, but over 3 decades. So it's actually a really nice story. And then I'm deciding whether to do this other sort of haunted house movie right now. I'm deciding on that right now. It's, again, one of those situations where there's not a lot of money, so it's like, but it's a very challenging role, so I'm weighing up like, okay, do I do this or not?
Well, sometimes, you do something and that role itself may not pay well, but it may lead to another role that does pay well.
Yeah, no, I mean, and this is actually through a acquaintance of mine. So as I said earlier, I love working with people that I really know and feel comfortable with. So and the DP of that particular movie I've worked with before too. So I probably will do it, but it's it's just it's I can't like do something half-assed. Like if I'm going to commit to something, I'm going to commit 100%. So if I'm going to take something on, I'm committed to it. And so it takes a lot of time and effort and energy. It's not just that being on the set. As I said, it takes, depending on the length of the role, it's 2 to 3 weeks prep of me learning every day, learning the dot, creating the character. That's before you even show up on set.
Exactly. You need to follow Vanessa on Instagram and follow her stories because every day that squirrel comes to the door. You need to check that out.
I know. I think everybody's so tired of it by now. I'm like, how many squirrels do we need to see?
No, I never get
I can't
tired
help
of it.
That's my like obsession. How when you have that's my current obsession. It's going to be my obsession forever, I think. But
Okay. Well, we're going to close the show out, but stay on the line. We will see you next time on The J. Michael Show.
Goodbye.